I have my bluey cup, and I am excited to tell you guys a story time today, which is different than usual. I've been doing a lot of I don't know, I don't want to call them motivation slash thinker pieces. I don't know what to call them, those types of videos that I make, but today's just a story time. And this is something that came up super recently, as my videos always do. This is something that came up super recently, kind of like a thought, I didn't realize that was the case. But recently, me and my sister had been talking about childhood, and as sisters do, and I forget what had occurred for me to make this connection and realization. Maybe I was on Netflix at her house or something. I'm not sure, but I remember having kind of a light bulb moment, and then looking to my sister and saying, "Oh my God, isn't it weird that our dad is an exorcist?" And she's like, huh? And then it took her another 5-10 seconds to be like, oh my God, you're right. And it's something that I never realized. It's like truly that's been the case forever, but it's just never, like, I truly get it when people are like, things happen to you when you're a kid and then you grow up and you didn't realize they were weird things, or that those things were like not normal. And it's not that I thought everybody had an exorcist dad. No. I just thought like, oh, that's just the part of like the intense religion that we're in. That's just like a part of the story. Like, that's just, if other people had really strict religious dads, they'd also understand this, but that's not the same. That's not the same thing. And for me and my sister, having that realization was so shocking, because an exorcist sounds made up. It sounds like something specific to horror movies, like I don't know, pick something that's really like hyper specific to horror movies that doesn't exist in real life, but they keep showing up in horror movies. Whatever that is, that's what an exorcist felt like to me. So to like put it together that that's what my dad did or was, insane. It just really felt like I had discovered something like because if something's in a movie, you automatically think it's fake. And I think like I've never seen The Exorcist, but it featured in a lot of horror movies, and I don't watch a lot of horror movies or horror movies period, but like every time I scroll on Netflix, you see the title of these things, and I think I was watching some sort of like YouTube video essay about movies, and then maybe they talked about The Exorcist, and they showed a clip of a little girl hovering, or like and like two preachers, and I was like putting it together. I was like, it's like a religious thing, but they're trying to exorcise her. And I'm like, wait, but that's what my dad does. Oh my God, this is real. But I'm not trying to tell people, I want to be super clear here. I'm not trying to tell people that what to think, what to believe. I can only speak to my own experiences as a child. I can only speak to my own experiences, what I went through. That's all I can tell you. This is the truth to me. So, and I'm not trying to convert anyone. I'm not trying to tell you like what's true and what's not. I don't even know. Are exorcists like just genuinely believed, or I don't really know the the universal feeling towards exorcists. Like, because it's in a movie, I feel like people think it's fake. And again, I'm not trying to convince you it's real. If you don't believe in it or don't care to know about it, then that's fine. And like, I'm not trying to I just want to hone that in. I am not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just telling you what I went through, my experience, with my dad. And I think, another instance where, again, this has been on my mind, I was talking to a friend where we were talking about certain things that happened, and I brought up that my dad used to take us, me and my sister and my mom, to random people's houses as a kid, and we would be there, and it was kind of like a little session, a little like get to know you back and forth, like what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And it was always, in my opinion, like we did that so much that I have so many mixed memories of being in random people's living rooms, people that I never knew and never saw again, and just in random parts. It's not like they were all in town, random places, where we would drive super far and get home super late, and it's like the type of thing where you fall asleep on the couch. I just remember like, and I would be so grateful if whomever's house we were in had kids, because then because we would have somewhere to retreat. We could watch a movie or something, because my dad would sit there and talk to this person, kind of like a what would you call it? It starts with a C. I don't want to say, it's not a quote. It's kind of like figuring them out, like trying to figure out what's going on here. And they would tell them, it's not like I paid a whole lot of attention at 10 years old, but like, what's the problem? What's going on here? Where's these things coming from? It was just a lot of gauging. And again, I would literally bring my homework, or I would bring something to color, or I would bring a book, or I would bring something, like, hopefully I had my Nintendo DS so that I would have something to do. Otherwise, like, I blank into space. Just like my maladaptive daydreaming came from here. I would write stories too. But let me get back on point. So sorry. Those were things that would just happen a lot. Like, we would go to people's houses, and my dad would kind of have these like little one-on-ones with people, and it was mostly my dad talking. My mom would chime in. But these were things where my dad would like end up doing an intensive, we call it intercession, where he would end up praying with these people. And sometimes, a lot of the times, it would end up in exorcisms. And I say that lightly because I don't want to make it sound like, I don't know, like, I don't want to make it sound weird, because truthfully, to me, it was just like intense prayer. Like, that's all. Like, a lot of like speaking in tongues, a lot of like movement, a lot of like, oh my God, it sounds so weird talking about it. I'm trying to like perceive it as you guys must be perceiving it, and it sounds so odd and weird. And it was, but trust me, it was not like a unsafe space. I did at some point when I was older feel like a little scared. The reason I felt a little scared was because at church they had spoken something about like spirits, and like when a spirit leaves a body or a demon leaves a body or something like that, it's like floating around. And I was afraid that it would like get into me, so I would just have to be praying too, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like if there's like demons out here now, I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to consume them or whatever the heck, or absorb them. I don't know. But that was something where I was like, okay, I really don't want to come to these things anymore. Like, and I didn't have a say. Like, my parents never left us home alone. My parents never left us with babysitters. We were always with them. So whatever they ended up doing, we would always be around. And the most intense experiences, I have like two very, actually maybe three very intense moments, because ideally me and my sister would be in a different room watching a movie or away, like with the kids. But sometimes these things would happen at church. Sometimes these things would happen like in a place that we were staying, like a home, or sometimes these things would happen like on the street even, like I can give you some examples. At 12 years old, one of my stronger memories towards this, and how I knew, like, I think from these moments on, it just like gave me a whole lot of like, oh yeah, this is how like intense this religion or space, like faith is. I remember my dad just being in a room that we were staying in, a house that we were staying in. They were in the living room. It was a bunch of adults. Some people had come that I did not know. It was just normal for people not to like tell me who was who, and it's not like you would tell a 12-year-old anyway. So I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to be with the kids in the other room, because there were other kids, and again, we were staying there, so I had my stuff there. And my mom, for some reason, wanted me and my sister out there to kind of like pray and like be in the circle among the prayer. And there was another incident that took place that day, but that incident in particular, they had a woman there who, I'm not sure what it was that she was dealing with. I don't know what her problem was, but the point is they decided to start praying over her life. And the way that I saw this go down, or I saw this happen, was a woman completely like transforming. And when I say transforming, I just mean like her entire aura changed, and like she didn't grow feathers, okay? Chill. That's not what I'm talking about. Her aura changed, her like voice changed, her strength changed, and I think that's the part that blows my mind the most. It took like 5 guys to hold her down. That's how strong she was. And it was like such a resistance too. You could just feel it. And it was so it was like me panicked for her and wanting to be like, oh my God, just like stop resisting. Cause it was a grown woman, and she was fighting off these guys like it was nothing. And finally they were able to like restrain her because she was so frantic, just like praying over her, trying not to like injure her in any way, and kind of alleviate, or in Spanish we call it liberar, or liberación, which is liberation. It's kind of just like release of like whatever you got going on, which might be demons, or again, I'm not trying to convince you that these things are real. I'm just telling you my little 12-year-old eyes, what they saw, and I'm telling you what I experienced. But that's what was happening there. And again, me and my sister were not involved in these things. We were just observers half the time, and it was always just like a Sunday, like we were used to things like this. But that one is pretty stained in my memory. I just remember her being like so strong, and so like that, like, this is not the woman that came in here 2 seconds ago. Another instance, I remember this was really intense night. My dad has a church, or had a church, in the Dominican Republic. People came from like, I don't know how far, but people came just for him to pray over them. And the amount of people that were just trembling and throwing up and just like not being able to like control their bodily functions after my dad had like prayed for them, or they would come in like just like shaking. Me and my sister at that point, it had gotten so late, we just stood outside of the church just like kicking rocks, like not really like but sometimes the like intense screaming would get so loud. Like, this sounds so scary and weird, but I promise, like, it was just it was not like it was not anyway. I'm not trying to make it sound negative. I'm just trying to be like truthful to what I experienced. I just remember trying to like jump because the entire church was made of like cinder block. I remember trying to jump to see the window and to like look inside to see, because there was so many people still inside trying to like pray and hold these people down, holding bags, trying to like catch vomit, and there was like intense like shouting. And I just remember trying to get a peek because I had I had been banished to outside at that point. I was like, okay. But I don't think I saw much. I just remember hearing everything, just like seeing the commotion and hearing everything. Another time that's really, really intense that I can remember was when I was a bit older. So I wasn't a kid at this point. So yeah, I wasn't a kid at this point. This was just like me. I think I might have been like at least 16, 17, 18, one of those ages. And my, I guess our childhood friends, family friends, they had invited us over. We had said, I guess, I don't know if we stayed the night. I'm not really sure what happened there, but I just remember being so uncomfortable in that house for a lot of different reasons, and it was not the best, just like vibe wise. And even though like we had known these people since I was literally like so little, I don't know what, like, well, I do know what actually. After like our stay there, my dad was like, okay, we're gonna pray before we leave, just like normal religious dad's preacher stuff. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're praying before we leave, like. And that was one of those moments where I'm just like, yeah, this is so intense. That was one of those moments that I won't forget. And it was just my dad praying over this woman, again, like a woman we had known for a very long time. Her husband wasn't around at the time. And I don't want to go into very many details because it is a little bit vulnerable. And I'm not trying to put her business out there, but it was something where my dad caught like a whiff of something in terms of like spiritually. And he just said like, oh my God, this is happening. And the way everyone was silent, because it was such a call out and it was such like something you wouldn't know unless like you had been told. And I remember her starting to cry, and I remember my dad's prayer started to get like, the intensity level had gone off the chain, and he started wrestling with someone, a completely invisible being. And I saw my dad like fist fighting something that was not visible. And the way that the chairs and everything started moving, and this is just like the life of the daughter of a preacher, of an exorcist, I guess, but like the way he had to drag whatever the heck that was out of the house was so like burned in my memory, and so so insane and so intense to me that I'm just like, I can never doubt this. It was just so much, and it was like, it did not look like fun, and it did not look like a good time, but it was just like, wow. Where like, those one of the moments where I'm like I do not want whatever the heck is going on. And I don't consider myself a crazy, crazy is not the right word, sorry, but you know, those are moments that like that should be really odd and off-putting, but felt intense but normal to me. And I remember telling my friend about this and then being like, that's traumatic. And I'm like, oh, is it? Yeah. I think the only person who can truly attest to like the same experience is my sister, because we were always there together. But it did feel really normal to us, and it never connected in my brain until like a couple months ago that my dad was an exorcist, and we like were around some of it. I'm sure we were around like a fraction of it in terms of like what he actually like went through and experienced. But as far as I know, my dad doesn't do that as much anymore. Like, that's not his whole thing anymore. He's more low key now. He's more chill now. But I do think that's still something that, happens. And I don't consider myself a strict religious person anymore. Or maybe I never even was, but I always felt like I feel like I always love God. And God is always with me, and God's the first person I wake up and go to sleep with. And that has never changed ever since I was a kid. I think one person told me God was my friend, and then I took that to heart, and I was like, ah! And God was the one I leaned on and trusted, and more than anything, more than anyone. And that remains true, and that remains strong. But that doesn't mean that I have any desire to be an exorcist or to follow in those footsteps at all. Or that's not me. And I think I knew that from a very young age, because I think my dad would have loved that. My dad would have loved me to like follow in his footsteps and adhere to some sort of like religious role. But I don't think, and I have emphasized this before, but I was not rebellious. I was not like a wild child. I was hyper and creative, sure, but I was not like a wild child in the streets or anything. So it's not that I was like, I'm fighting against this because this is what you want me to do. It truly was just like not of the heart. And and that's it. And my relationship with God is personal and mine, and I love that. And I think I think it's, whether you like believe my stories or not, it's not really like something. It is not something I talk about ever. So it's not something that I use to like convert people, because that is not my goal. I do not think the evangelism thing was for me, at least not in that way. But I do think that what I experience is what I experience, and it's my truth, and that's never gonna change. It's just like, that's just never gonna not be true. So for me, like, it's not about believing or not believing in it or in exorcisms or whatever the heck. That's not the point of this story. I just wanted to express it, how odd it was for me to make the connection that like my dad was an exorcist. And I think that's really unique, and I wouldn't change it, to be honest. Like, it's not that it was fabulous. Trust, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it was unique, and it was quite an experience, and it gave me a lot of like time in my childhood to be bored and to dream and to just like be creative outside of the house. And maybe I'm finding light where maybe I'm finding prose where there was like none, but like I do see, I don't know, I think everything was led me to who I am and what I am right now. But that's my story about, you know, my dad was an exorcist, or is an exorcist. I guess was is better. I grew up with an like, what am I gonna title this video? I always say this. I don't know what I'm gonna title it. Oh, this is Onyx. Onyx, you don't want to be in the video? Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. Again, you don't have to believe it. It's just me sharing things that happened when I was a kid, and the oddness of this. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you guys want more story times, because honestly, I love doing story times. It has been a long time, so even telling this story has felt really rusty to me. I'm like, oh my god, am I giving details that don't matter? Anyway, ya te amo.